qualitative aspects of documenting effect in medicine, often called subjective, that is from the perspective and experience of the patient, and objective, that is from the perspective of the therapist or researcher. To document effect of an intervention using both perspectives, the patient must be interviewed before and after the intervention. Semi-structured interviews with interview rating of the state immediately before and after the intervention can be used to give the objective perspective on the effect of the intervention. Interviewing the patient after the intervention can give the patient's subjective experience of the effect. Most importantly, these perspectives often leads to two different results, but confronting the patient with the observed improvement, after the patient has given his own experience of the effect, can be very enlightening. The consensus paradigm states that only to the degree that there is consensus between patient and therapist observer, the treatment has an effect. If the patient experiences an effect that cannot be observed, something else is likely to have happened. A pleasant experience with the therapy is not the same as the effect of a treatment. If the patient does not experience an observed effect, this effect is most likely to be happening only in the observer's mind. Very often a therapist is convinced that a cure or intervention gave a positive result, but the fact that the patient did not experience that is then often neglected. So if the patient did not experience any improvement, such an improvement is most likely not to have happened. Interestingly, one single patient is enough to document effect with the consensus paradigm. If both the physician and his patient, after careful investigation before and after the treatment, find that the treatment has helped, this is most likely the case. The more precise the target group and the treatment are defined, the more valuable the documentation. We recommend for securing the validity that the presented method is used with 5 highly comparable patients receiving 5 highly comparable treatments. As always, we recommend for the observer rating a 5-point symmetrical Likert scale with neutral middle point and equidistance 143. A clinically significant improvement must be half a step on this scale or more. The patient needs to express the gain as a significant improvement. There are lots of possible advantages with the scientific holistic medicine that must be closely examined in future research. How can it be maker affordable, efficient medicine for the future? The possibility to prevent disease. The possibility to cure cancer and coronary heart disease. The possibility to seroconvert HIV-positive patients to HIV-negative. The possibility to relieve pain and discomfort. The possibility of rehabilitating working ability. The possibility of improving people's competency as parents. The possibility of improving working efficiency through development of talent. The possibility of helping people to be happy in spite of difficult circumstances and challenges.
Holistic education encompasses a wide range of philosophical orientations and pedagogical practices. Its focus is on wholeness, and it attempts to avoid excluding any significant aspects of the human experience. It is an eclectic and inclusive movement whose main characteristic is the idea that educational experiences foster a less materialistic and a more spiritual worldview along with more dynamic and holistic views of reality. It also proposes that educational experience promote a more balanced development of and cultivate the relationship among the different aspects of the individual, intellectual, physical, spiritual, emotional, social and aesthetic, as well as the relationships between the individual and other people, the individual and natural environment, the inner self of students and external world, emotion and reason, different discipline of knowledge and different form of knowing. Holistic education is concerned with life experience, not with narrowly defined basic skills in holistic education is a fairly new movement, which began to take form as a recognizable field of study and practice in North America. It emerged as a response to the dominant worldview of mainstream education, often referred to the mechanistic worldview. Rather than attempting to provide a model of education, holistic education seeks to challenge the fragmented, reductionistic assumptions of mainstream culture and education. In other words, holistic education is concerned with underlying worldviews or paradigms in an attempt to transform the foundations of education. Holistic education is not to be defined as a particular method or technique. It must be seen as a paradigm, a set of basic assumptions and principles that can be applied in diverse ways. Holistic education addresses the broadest development of the whole person. It aims for the fullest possible human development, enabling a person to become the very best or finest that they can be and develop fully those capacities that together make up a human being. A main element of holistic education is its focus on the interconnectedness of experience and reality. Holistic education attempts to develop a pedagogy that is interconnected and dynamic, and thus is in harmony with the cosmos. In contrast, much of traditional education tends to be static and fragmented, ultimately promoting alienation and suffering in others. Holistic education focuses on the relationship between the whole and the part and suggests that teaching and learning approaches need to be rooted in a larger vision. Within this holistic perspective, the student is positioned as an active, participatory. The holistic vision includes a sense of the whole person and environment. Holistic education frequently claims that it wants to educate the whole child, all parts of the child, educate the student as a whole and not an assemblage of parts. See the child as part of a whole society, humanity, the environment, some spiritual whole, from which it is not meaningful to extract the student. Holistic education challenges the present approach to education and its obsessive focus on standards and testing. Holistic educators see this approach as reflecting a materialist and consumerist culture that has reduced schooling to the training of individuals to compete and consume in the global marketplace. The present thrust can be seen as abandoning any attempt to educate the whole human being. It reduces schooling to training for the workplace that can be easily assessed through standardized tests. Holistic educators are convinced that the further evolution of civilization and human consciousness requires a renewed measure of respect and reverence for the inner life of the growing person. Holistic education provides students with a sense of meaning and order to things. By introducing students to a holistic view of the planet, life on Earth, holistic strategies enable students to perceive and understand the various contexts which shape and give meaning to life. Holistic education is a journey for both the educator and the student. For both, the nature of holistic education can change as they each progress through the program and draw different experiences from it. The process of holistic education must therefore be flexible and dynamic to accommodate these personal differences and influences. Differences in the rate of personal progression. A holistic ideal can be traced back to indigenous cultures. In general, the Aboriginal or indigenous person sees the earth and the universe as infused with meaning, and holistic educators try to recover this sense of meaning and purpose in education. The concept of holism comes from the Greek concept of holon, that sees the universe as made up of integrated wholes that cannot be reduced in parts. The Greeks argued for a holistic approach in learning. Socrates can be seen as a holistic educator because he encouraged each person to examine his or her own life. Know thyself. The holistic paradigm emerged as a vibrant and coherent intellectual movement in the 1980s and has been expressed by thinkers. It has deep roots in ancient spiritual traditions and cosmologies, which Aldous Huxley described as the perennial philosophy. When the so-called Enlightenment of the 18th century elevated analytical, scientific reasoned dominance in the West, this perennial wisdom, the recognition of humanity's intimate connection to the evolving cosmos, was relegated to a dissident movement labeled Romanticism. Holistic education thus has its roots in the Romantic educational theories of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Pestalozzi, and Froebel. Rousseau, Pestalozzi, and Froebel, along with other holistic educators of 19th and 20th centuries such as transcendentalists William Ellery, Channing, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Bronson Alcott, and Francis Parker, as well as Montessori and Rudolf Steiner, all emphasized the spiritual nature of the human being. Rousseau, although more humanistic than holistic in his approach to education, did provide some underpinnings for holistic education. Rousseau viewed the child as essentially good and believed that the soul of the child should be allowed to unfold according to its own natural pattern. This view of the child as good is a basic assumption of holistic education, which rejects the fundamentalist view that children are born in original sin. Pestalozzi, a Swiss educator influenced by Rousseau, put his ideas into practice. He believed that the classroom should be a place for meaningful activity, and he encouraged teachers to use their intuition. In the past century, two of the most important holistic educators have been Rudolf Steiner and Maria Montessori. Steiner was the founder of the Waldorf school movement, which began shortly after World War I, and has grown since its inception. Steiner distinctly referred to the soul life of children and how it could be nurtured in a school setting. Maria Montessori, the founder of the Montessori school movement, also believed in the importance of nurturing the spiritual development of children. She believed that mental, physical, and spiritual qualities of the human being are supported by a divine life source. With regard to the spiritual aspect, it was her belief that within each person there is a spiritual embryo that is developing according to a divine plan, and the most urgent duty of a teacher to a child was to eliminate as many obstacles to this development as possible. Montessori believed that if children were provided with a nurturing environment, home would direct the natural unfolding of the child's personality and powers so that he or she would become an independent adult.